Today's story is the story of a wife's fight. A wife who is certain that her husband is innocent, but no one else is ready to believe this. Even her relatives, her sisters, the couch, and even the lawyers. And then it happens. Her husband is punished. The punishment is not just like that. The punishment is about life imprisonment of her husband's life. There was no chance of him coming out of jail. If he gets payroll and other things, he will come in 2052. Now it is 2023. So guess that he would have come out after 27 years. But a wife didn't lose her courage. She would have been in prison for 27 years, or rather 7 years, trying to prove his husband innocent. The story of Ohio, located in America. There used to be a family here, Judith Johnson. It was 1963. Judith Johnson was married. She had no children. So Judy and her husband decided to adopt the child. But they didn't have enough money to legally adopt a child under the laws of that time. They told their acquaintances that they should not be a couple. They should have their own house. They should have the right means of earning their income. There were many do's and don'ts which took time to get the child. But one day the couple finally found out that this is the only organization where they can get the child easily. Jody and her husband went there. And in February 1963, in a $1,000 cavern, they found a girl. Her name was Melinda. The parents who were taking of her said that the girl who was born here, her parents are dead, so we are giving her to you. Jody and her husband, Melinda, came home, and they were happy that God gave them another daughter. Time passed slowly. Judy Johnson's husband died. Now both the daughters are grown up. Both of them got married. Now Melinda, who was an elder daughter, had 2 sons. So Judy Johnson had become a grandmother. 1998, the age of Jody Johnson was about 52 years. Everything was going well. During this time, June 1998, a break was made in America, and that is from 1951 to 1965. In America, there is a gang in 5 different states where they do something illegal. They would give the baby to the parents of the children who need children, and then they would sell it to them. The name given to this whole gang at that time was Hicks Gang. It was known that people who are in need, who have no child, purchase a baby from them. So this was finalized in 1998. When this was finalized, when the rest of the investigation was done, the case came to Melinda. In 1963, in February, Jody Johnson had adopted a girl. Now she is 30 years old. Her name is Melinda. After that, when everything was investigated, the gang was arrested. So we found out that Melinda was the daughter of a family whose parents lied to her when she was born. Her daughter was dead. And then she was sold her to Judy Johnson for $1,000. Judy Johnson and her husband were unaware of this truth, so they were not at fault. But when it came to this, both the mother and daughter were on a talk show on a TV channel in America called Namsheen. They sat there and narrated their story. This entire episode was recorded in June 1998, but before this episode was on air, Judy Johnson was not alive to watch this episode. June 6, 1998, Jody Johnson was at home. Her second daughter, who was 6-year-old younger, named Brooks, used to stay at her grandmother Jody Johnson's house. That night she was at home with her grandmother. Both of them were single. Meanwhile, a stranger entered Jody Johnson's house at night. He attacked on Jody. When he attacked, a 6-year-old Brooks was in the other room. She came out after hearing the noise. When she came out, she saw her grandmother bleeding. After this, the attacker also did atrocities with that 6-year-old innocent. He beat her and sexually abused her. The 6-year-old innocent became unconscious due to this act. After that, that person left. It was the morning of 7th June. When the 6-year-old girl regained consciousness, she remembered everything. She was not too old, but her family had taught her how to send a voice message on mobile. She sent a voice message. She sent a friend of hers and said, "I am here with my grandmother and someone has beaten her up. You come to her house with my mother." Now, Brooke has already sent this message. After that, she was in a blood stain. There was no clothes on her. That 6-year-old innocent girl came out of her house. Outside the door, there was a neighbor living in the neighborhood. She knocked on her door. Everyone felt sorry for that girl. She is to be taken to the hospital immediately. Her neighbor asked about her condition. A person knocked on the door, and a neighbor came out. The girl said that someone had beaten her grandmother inside her house, and she was beaten up by him too. Please call my mother immediately. The man said, okay. The girl stood at the door for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, the neighbor came out. After that, the mother and the rest of the family had received the message. She was badly beaten up. She had a lot of bruises on his head. The doctor declared her dead. The police questioned him. A 6-year-old girl said that a man came at night and attacked him. His eyes were blue. When the man turned around, I saw his eyes and his face for a while. And when I saw her face, I thought she was our Uncle Elkins. So, Uncle Elkins. Now, when this girl said this, police asked, who is Uncle Elkins? Then they found out that Elkins was the name of Melinda's husband. That is, the name of Judith Johnson's son-in-law. Melinda come inside with both her 2 small sons. One witness of that crime is saying that the person I saw had blue eyes and he was Uncle Elkins. After this, the police asked the other people, and after all this questioning and the statement of that girl, the police arrested Elkins. Elkins was at home with his son. When they asked him why he was taking him in custody, the police told him that your mother-in-law is a murderer and your niece is your wife's sister's 6-year-old daughter. He was charged with rape. He kept saying that he was innocent and didn't even go home. The distance between his house and his house was 40 miles. He asked the time, and he said that he was in a bar at that time, and there were many people who said that he was in a bar. But now, if you look at the witnesses and the witness of that crime scene, it was a matter of confusion for the police. Then the police said that no, we have a witness of this crime, so we will trust the statement of that 6-year-old girl. Later, the whole crime scene of the room was investigated. The clothes of the 6-year-old girl, all the things were immediately kept for investigation. All the things that were found from the scene of crime were kept for investigation. But at that time, the DNA and other things that happened, none of them matched with the alchemist. His presence was not evident on the crime scene, neither was it proven. Now the lawyer also said about this, but was it said about this, but was it said or not? We are not standing this case on DNA or scientific evidence. We have a witness who is alive and who is a victim himself, and he saw the murder and his rape. And he recognized this man. That is why I think he is the culprit. The court gave this charge me dead, a 6-year-old innocent girl, and on the basis of his statement, Clarence Elkins was given the punishment of life imprisonment with the condition that before 2052, he will not be released on parole. Now, a man was punished, and his wife Melinda, who had lost her mother, whose sister's daughter was raped, and whose husband is in jail, is now all alone. He asked his husband, "Tell me the truth. What is all this?" Where his husband replied, "I really don't know." Then he told that he was in the bar. People also testified. Coincidentally, the camera members did not have the right timing. Melinda did not know why her husband wasn't innocent. She tried her best to get him out of court, but the court did not accept and punished him. Melinda is living with her 2 sons. Now, the children are living in a strange world. Melinda is living in a world of destruction. She was killed and raped by her sister's daughter. Her sister and husband also considered her responsibility. They turned away from her. All her relatives, her husband, her children, all of them were turned away from her, and they started to consider them as the guilty ones. Even the conversation between the sisters was stopped. If Melinda would pass by and she would look at her sister, she would turn away. She stopped going home, but Melinda felt that her husband was innocent. When she tried everything, she felt that she had to do something to prove her husband innocent. And then she decided that she would investigate this case. First of all, if her husband is not a murderer or a rapist, then who could it be? She did a long investigation. The case file, police reports, the judgment that the court gave. She studied all of them. Then the locals where all this happened, the neighbors, after doing all this, she shortlisted a total of 12 people. She wrote 12 names. If her husband is not a murderer, then he is the murderer. One of them must be the murderer. Now he found a list of 12 people who had to come and go to their homes, who knew the family, and he thought that their behavior was strange. After finding a list of 12 people, he said that if he gets a DNA sample of these 12 people, then the sample of the crime scene that he had already kept, and if it matches with it, because it did not match with his husband, then the work will be done. But the work was difficult. How did 12 people get their samples? But Melinda said that she has to do it. She has flooded more people than these 12 people. She would go to bars, pubs, go out, show them how to get close to them. And in the meantime, she would collect the butts of someone's cigarette, someone's hair. She took time to do this, but she has flooded these 12 people. It took 4 or 5 years to collect all these things. She collected them, and she didn't know how long these evidence would be alive. It wouldn't make any sense after how many days, but she collected them and put them in a box. She brought the box inside the house and put it in the freezer. So slowly, the freezer became a laboratory. She started putting all the samples in it. She kept all the samples. 5 years have passed, and from 1998 to 2004. But he doesn't understand how to get the DNA of these samples done. First, he is a convicted wife, and no one is supporting him. So he thought that he should also shortlist these 12 people. He also flirted with these 12 people's samples, went close to them and collected them, and kept the sample with him. But how to move forward? Then a friend of hers asked her to do a job. She said that she didn't have any further information. She asked her to hire a private detective. She said okay. Then she hired a private investigator and told her the whole story. She also felt the courage of this lady. Then she said that before moving forward, the most important person in this case is the girl who testified, and the husband who testified is punished. That girl was 6 years old at that time. Now she's 12 years old. But how can she go to that girl? Because her sister had kept her mouth shut. There was nothing left. But she thought that to prove her husband's innocence, she would have to bow down. Then she somehow tries to go near her sister. Then she tells her sister that whatever happened, we are sisters, we should sit and talk. Then the sister also thinks that we did something wrong with her. If the husband did it, then what is his fault? She starts meeting her sister and her daughter. Then she asks the girl, "Did you see your Uncle Elkins?" She says, "I have a little doubt. The eyes I saw were not blue, but dark. I saw him for a few seconds when he turned around and there was darkness in the room. His eyes were shining, but they were not blue. He had blue eyes." He said, "I think I can't tell you the truth now." That night, Uncle Elkins was home. When they found out about this, they both sisters saw him. He was a 12-year-old smart kid. They thought his statement would be very useful. Then somehow, Melinda explained to her sister and her nephew. They got ready. Now, through her investigator, she hired a lawyer and said that the trial of this case should be reopened. When she was put in court, she asked why. She said that the witness was not sure that she was really Elkins because she had made new conclusions. But the government lawyers came in the middle and said that the whole punishment had been done, and the girl had given a statement. She had given a testimony, and she was on the basis of that. And they had put a new allegation that now this statement is being changed by putting pressure on that girl. So that's why there is no point in reopening this trial. All this effort was wasted. The court denied the case of reopening. Now all this. It was over. What can we do now? We fought, and now we lost the ball. It's been almost 6 years now. But during that time, one day Melinda was going by bus for work. When she was going by bus, she saw a passenger reading a newspaper. It was a newspaper of local people. A story was published in it, which was related to rape. 2 pictures were published in it. Now, since there is rape with children and such things, here, there is also this thing that who can be. So, everyone who rapes with children, she used to study about it. So when she read it, she saw that there is a name, Allman, and there is another person's name with him, there are two people's names, and these two were caught in the charge of raping with many children. In fact, one of them was to rape with the children of her own family. He was a criminal. His name was Tanya. When he read about these two, he bought the newspaper and came home. He had done a lot of research at that time. Now he started searching about these two. The names of the 12 people were not the names of the person who he had read in the newspaper. He thought he might get some clue from them. But when he came back and started studying about these two and taking out their criminal records, she looked at the address of the house. She saw that Allman, in the month of June 1998, used to live in the same house as her mother, Judith Johnson. Not only that, when she opened her file to her husband, she saw that the statement given by her niece. When she woke up the next morning and knocked on the door of a neighbor, and the neighbor did not react for 45 minutes and kept her standing, that neighbor was no one else but this very Allman. When he was told that he was the neighbor, he thought that a woman was telling him about her grandmother's condition, and he was afraid to see her face. How can that man keep her waiting for 45 minutes? Why didn't the police ask him at that time? When these two things came up, he shared it with his private investigator. When she shared, she found out something else. A while ago, Allman was arrested in a traffic violation case. He has been to jail many times before. In child abuse and other cases, he was arrested and he is in jail now. And coincidentally, in the same jail in which his husband is in jail. That means Elkins is not in jail. Now, Melinda started thinking from here. He started to record his old case file to the police. So we came to know that when in June 1998, Judy was murdered after a few weeks, Allman was caught, and even then, in an accusation of a traffic violation, the traffic police caught him. And when he was sent to jail after being caught, someone came to his jail to give a notice. The first line in the paper was on the record, that you might have arrested us in the Judith Johnson case. The police didn't know about it. The police didn't ask, and they said that. But still the police didn't pay attention to this line, that a man was being arrested for traffic violation, and he was not saying that he wasn't brought in his murder case. So what does this have to do with it? If he had been investigated, he would have accepted it at that time. In a way, he had half acceptance. He was accepting that he wasn't brought in that case, but the police were looking at that case as a separate case. So when all this was known, then Melinda went to jail. And she meets her husband Elkins and says that there is a man named Allman in your jail. He says, yes, I know. He just came and we meet in jail. So she says that she is completely sure that the person I am looking for, who is the murderer of my mother, who is the rapist of my niece, is the same person. Because he was standing here in the neighborhood that day and standing there for 45 minutes. Give me her DNA sample in some way. She said she smokes. If you give me her cigarette butts, it might be useful. She said, I was trying on my level before I told you. When she found out that it was locked in jail, Melinda started writing letters to Allman. She used to write letters in such envelopes. She used to send an envelope inside it so that she could reply. You will remember the envelope in the olden days. The ayah that you use to wet the saliva, and then you close it. So she said that if she ever answered her letter, she was writing the letter in a way by flirting. Then through the saliva, her DNA sample will be found. But unfortunately, Allman did not answer a single letter from the jail. Now after that, she said to her husband, she said, okay, I will try. They were smoking in the same place. Ancestor put the cigarette in the ashtray. He picked it up and put it in his cell. He wrapped it in a paper, he put it in the Bible, and kept it there for a week. After a week, he came to meet the lawyer. He was reading the Bible and hand over the DNA sample to the person who was responsible for the smoke. The lawyer then sent a message to his wife that the work was done, and the DNA sample of the smoke was found. The lawyer was then in control. After that, the private investigator sent a message to the lab, where the DNA samples of the smoke and the crime scene had been exposed, in which the panties of the 6-year-old girl were kept. Now this almond cigarette matches with the result of DNA, 99.9 match. So there is no room left here. As soon as this match was done, it was proved that almond was present on the crime scene on 6 June 1998. She killed Judy, and she was with that girl. As soon as the DNA report is handed over to the court, then the court also said that you cannot challenge this report. So the court admitted their mistake. And after admitting the mistake, after keeping Allman in jail for 7 years, on 15th December 2005, Allman was released, as Allman was already in jail with 2 new charges. One was of the murder of Judith Johnson, and the other was of the rape of that 6-year-old girl. After this, the court gave the verdict. Now he get punished until he turns into 92 years of his age. Till then, he will not get parole and will be in jail. By the way, now he is around 44 or 45 years old. When he is old enough, he will be released from jail for the first time. Till then, he will be in jail. He will be imprisoned for life imprisonment. So now let's believe that he will not be released from jail. So, Allman was punished. Here, after 7 years, Clarence Elkins was released from jail due to his wife's hard work. Is the whole family happy? Melinda's sister was also saddened. Then, Elling was asked if the 6-year-old girl had testified and asked her to stay inside for 7 years. She said she was a girl and she was a girl for her. So there could be mistakes. But we are a family. All this continued after some time. Coincidentally, Melinda and Elkins, for whom they fought so much, got divorced. They separated. But the children live together, and they have just started. They have taken a divorce, and they have agreed. But they say that after the divorce, they are still good friends. Elkins never forgets his wife's favor, and Melinda never forgets her husband's innocence. So they are not husband and wife anymore. They are still friends, and happy, and the whole family is now one. So this was the story of a person who was considered a criminal by the court, police, law, and justice, and was sentenced to life imprisonment, and who would have been in jail by 2052. He is still 23, but he was released within 7 years. Why? Because his wife solved this murder case. To solve this, she changed her fridge into a laboratory. She collected different DNA samples from people in different situations, just so that her husband could get justice. And finally, she won. So this was the story.